3, 2, 1. Quorum Radio, baby. Today I've got on a very, very remarkable guy, Joseph D. Pistone, who, in case you don't know who he is, he was better known for his name Donnie Brasco. Donnie Brasco, of course, we think of the movie with Al Pacino and Johnny Depp, and it's basically based on a true story, and Joe Pistone is here today to tell us about that true story, about a guy who infiltrates the Mafia for 6 years. He dives deep into the murky world of La Cosa Nostra, and it became the basis for very, very interesting book called The Donnie Brasco, My Undercover Life in the Mafia, and another book that he wrote, Unfinished Business, that he co-wrote with Charles Brandt. In case you have any doubt, Charles Brandt is the fellow who wrote the book I Heard You Paint Houses, and I Heard You Paint Houses was the basis of the movie The Irishman. So very interesting fellow, Joe Pistone, interesting friends, and interesting that he's on Quorum Radio. I have to bring him in. Joe, I hope you're doing well in this crazy coronavirus pandemic. Thanks for coming to Quorum Radio. How you doing today?
It's like being in a can.
Oh my gosh! I mean, this is way worse than the polio scares in the 1950s. Tell us about something. I know you were born in Erie, Pennsylvania, but what was growing up in Paterson, New Jersey like?
Well, I actually was born in a little coal mining town called Robertsdale, Pennsylvania, and I don't know how that Erie. I lived in Erie, Pennsylvania, for a few years, and I think that's how that came out that I was born there. But actually, I was born in Robertsdale, Pennsylvania. But my growing up background in Paterson, you attained a lot of street smarts because I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. And in the neighborhood, there were wise guys. I mean, it wasn't any surprise to me when I got into law enforcement to work wise guys or to learn about wise guys because I knew about them growing up. They had, there were several social clubs in the neighborhood, and as a kid, the wise guys let you hang around the social club because you were a neighborhood guy. So I knew wise guys from that aspect of growing up. So it was no big deal when I got into law enforcement to work wise guys or get to know how they acted or their mannerisms.
Sure. And that became the basis for you to be able to know how to react, how to act, what to say, what not to say, to keep quiet, and just to watch, right?
Exactly, because you're growing up in an Italian household, and you're always told you don't talk until you're spoken to, and that's one of the things in the mob is that if you're an outsider, you keep your mouth shut and you just listen. You don't get involved in conversations that you had nothing to do with, and I carried that over into my undercover activities, and that's what lent me credibility and help me proceed with my undercover activities.
Sure. And Joe, just out of curiosity, because your background is Sicilian, and I like to make the joke that because you're so punctual, Joe, that you're from your ancestors were from that part of Sicily that borders on Switzerland, because you can schedule Joe Pistone for an interview and he shows up on time, and which is kind of interesting. And I don't know if that's, let's say, a trait that you associate with mob guys. Are mob guys also very, very careful about being punctual, or is that just something that?
Well,
but not others.
I don't. Not all mob guys are. That's not in the repertoire being punctual. There are some that are, but. They operate on their own time, really,
Sure.
And it's like anything else, some guys were, like you got a guy like Sonny Black, he was a guy that was, if you got to be somewhere at a certain time, he made sure he was there. And Lester Ruggiero was the same. But then there were guys that, if it was raining out and you had, I know one time we had a meeting at night, and it was raining pretty hard, and one of the guys didn't show up, and next day Sonny Black called him out on it. He said, well, what do you want? He said, it was raining out. I didn't have any umbrella to come out of my house and go to my car. So,
wow, how about that? So, about the mob in the United States at that time, at least back in the 70s, your Operation Sun Apple began in September of 1976. It ended in, if I'm not mistaken, July of 1981. At that time, of course, there were members of the mob who were of Italian descent and those who were of Sicilian descent. Is there much of a difference? I mean, was there a marked difference? I know that there were mob cliques and squads that were Sicilian and others that were,
with the Americans, there wasn't a difference between the American gangsters that were, descendants from Sicily or descendants from the mainland of Italy, but a very, very marked difference in the Sicilians that came over here. There was a big difference because they didn't think that the American mafia guys were tough enough as far as in their business dealings, and
right.
So there was like I know in the Bonanno family there was a faction of the Bonannos that were strictly Sicilians, from Sicily, and right. There was animosity between the Americans and the Sicilians, again, because the Sicilians thought the Americans were getting away from the traditions and were not enforcing all the rules and regulations that they should have been.
That you've mentioned that there's certain codes of conduct, and for mobsters, what are some of the codes of conduct that come to mind, Joe, when you think about the mob? What are they like? What are their traits? What are their customs?
Well, it's a lot of people don't realize it, but the mob does have standards, and they do have rules that you have to abide by, and some of them will get you killed, and some of them will just show a lack of respect, and they might, like they say, put you on a shelf.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things is that is your dress code. I mean, I was told, once I got accepted, I was told that, be neat, keep your hair cut nice, shave that mustache off. I had a bushy mustache.
Yeah.
Shave that mustache, keep your hair neat. When we go out, in the evening, wear a sport coat. You don't have to wear a suit, but wear slacks and nice shirt, sport coat. I mean, and respect. Respect is a big thing. Whoever is above you, or another wise guy, another made guy, you have to show them respect. And you don't. One of the things that will get you killed, and you don't fool around with the made guy's wife, girlfriend, or daughter, unless you got good intentions with the daughter. I mean, and they sit you down, and once you're accepted, and you are, look, to be a member of the Mafia, you got to be white, male, and Italian. So you have to go through an apprenticeship. So once you're accepted to the point where they're going to groom you to become a member, they sit you down and go over all these rules with you. And
really?
Did
that happen?
Yeah, and yes, it did. It did. And one of the big fallacies is that they tell you you should never become involved in drugs. Well,
sure.
Most of them are, because there's so much money in it. But it's still a rule that they don't want you involved in drugs. They don't want you to be a big drinker. But they break all their own rules, but they do have these rules and regulations that they go through.
So and who was your, you were under a number of people, of mob figures. Anthony Mira, he went to jail. Then you fell into the order for a while. You were with the Jilly Greco's crew and the Colombo family.
Colombo's,
that ended. Yeah. And then you came into the orbit of Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero, and then Sonny Black Napolitano. Which one of those three, or maybe all of them, were mentoring you and starting to groom you to be a made guy?
Well, basically, Lefty in the beginning. Once I started hanging around with him, after Tony Mira went back to the can, Lefty was a great mentor, teaching me and showing me the ways of the Mafia, which he thought that's what he was doing. As he would say, I'm schooling you on the ways. And they don't call it the Mafia, they don't call themselves the Mafia, they call it the La Cosa Nostra,
Sure.
And then once we got to that Sonny Black became our captain, then Sonny Black started, he started grooming me too, because he was our captain, and he's the one that, was going to propose me and did propose me for membership. So it basically started with Ruggiero, and then it carried over to Ruggiero and Sonny Black grooming me.
Sure. Now, taking a step back, what I've seen very few people ask you about is that through your period in the Navy that maybe gave you insights into gathering intel, human intel? Is that the case? I mean, was there anything that you found, insights that you obtained from the U.S. Navy? You worked in naval intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
You later on.
Because we did. That was one of our main functions, gathering intelligence information, and a lot of it is at that time was you learn how to gather it through human intelligence, and what I mean by that is by talking to people, getting intelligence from people that you have conversation with, and them not knowing that they're actually giving you, giving you information that is of valuable intelligence information.
Sure. And so we jump back into Sun Apple. Okay, the name of the operation that basically involved New York and Florida. It had some interesting detours. You ended up, you and one of your FBI brothers in Milwaukee got the members of the outfit in Milwaukee involved. I don't know if that, by the way, was that a satellite of Chicago? The Chicago outfit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ballestieri,
they answered to Chicago.
Wow.
Right. Milwaukee was tied in with Chicago. Correct.
Great. And then, of course, you had an FBI colleague that then got involved in Holiday, Florida, at the club, the King's Court Bottle Club, which was also quite a coup. But if we go back just to the point when in 1976, you had already finished, I guess, in 1974, the infiltration of the truck theft ring, heavy equipment theft ring. And how did the idea of Sun Apple come up? Whose idea was that? Was that you? Was it something that came up with members of the FBI talking back and forth? What was the genesis of that, Joe?
Well, basically, it was the gentleman by the name of Guy Barata, who was my supervisor in New York City on the truck hijack squad. The idea of Sun Apple undercover operation was actually Guy's brainchild, and since I just come off, an 18-month, approximately 18-month undercover operation, I wasn't, that well known because I had been away from New York for 18 months. So that's why he asked me if I wanted to take on the assignment, and which I did.
And the reason, what was your initial reaction? Were you excited? Did you have a little bit of trepidation?
No, not really, because I had been involved in several undercover operations up to that time, and to me, it was just another investigation. That's all I looked at. That's all in my career I ever looked at undercover, was just another form of investigation.
Sure. So, for the sake of those who aren't quite sure what that term means, what is a legend, Joe?
Well, what your legend is, it's who you are. It's your background. You can't go in. You can't go into undercover work, using your real name as that you use as an FBI agent, and you have to have a profession. And to have this profession, you got to have backup. You got to have you got to have a name. You got to have driver's license. You got to have a residence. Everything that people can check out. In other words, that they can go to a physical residence and determine that you live there. So that's what your legend is. It's basically who you are, what your background is, and who you are.
They chose the legend of you being a jeweler. You had quite a bit of experience in that. I think you went to formal instruction, and you also worked in a jewelry shop.
Right.
And then, of course, they drop you off at Carmela's bar in Midtown. That was the name of the place, right?
That was one of them. I mean, there were several. Yeah, there were several of them, but that was one of them. I mean, what we had a list of bars and restaurants that we knew that these individuals hung out at, and it was the idea was, with the Mafia, you just don't walk into a place and say, "Hey, I'm Donnie Brasco, I'm a jewel thief, and I want to start doing business." I mean, that's not the way the mob works. Yeah. Sure. So the idea was for me to go around to these bars and restaurants and get my face seen, and hopefully get in the conversation with individuals, and eventually get to a point where I can start doing business with them, and let them know that that I deal in jewelry, et cetera, et cetera.
So the first person, okay, the first person really that kind of became your liaison, so to speak, was generally the bartenders, right? Or were there other people also that out of the blue just showed up and tapped you on the shoulder and introduced themselves? Or how did it happen that you started to get,
I would go to this, one place, and I finally broke the ice and start talking to this bartender, and it was like, again, and you don't introduce yourself that, "Hey, I'm Donnie Brasco, and I deal in stolen diamonds and precious gems,"
Right.
And after I started finally, after several months, I finally started talking to this guy and the bartender, and it was just all small talk, and then
Sure.
And that's another thing too, is how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself, the manner of your conversation, and I would drop hints that that he knows, hey, this guy's a street guy, because of the way he's made, his phrases and talking. So then just finally one day he asked me if I wanted to, if I liked to gamble, and I said yeah, and he said, "You want to go to an after hours game?" I said yeah, and so I started going to this after hours game with him, and it was all wise guys there, but he never introduced me to anybody, but I was with him, so I was okay.
Sure.
And then after a while, then after a while, I just gave him some diamonds and said, "Hey, I need X amount of money for these diamonds." I never told him what they were. I just gave him a package.
Sure.
And after a while, he come back and he said, "Here, and then he started introducing me as Don the jeweler. And that's how then I met Julie Greco. He was a Colombo. Started hanging out with them.
And so, okay, so that was Julie Greco's crew was over in Brooklyn, right?
Right. They were Brooklyn guys, yeah.
Sure. So then, and they were like truck hijackers, thieves.
They were basically thieves, big hijackers.
Right. And so how'd that go? Tell us about the first couple of months there. Pretty uneventful. Did you brought them some money for them because you had some stolen?
Well, pretty. Yeah, I mean, they were they were an active hijacking crew, and so and I would bring them around some watches and stuff that I said that I had stolen from the airport, different airports, the LaGuardia, JFK, Newark. So that's how I got to be that I was legitimate. When I say legitimate, a legitimate thief, because I was bringing around stuff, so I got in pretty good with them, and then I got into a beef with two guys that were in Jilly's crew that had gotten out of jail, and I got into a beef with them, and I ended up in a physical confrontation with both of them. And
which was a sit down, right, Joe?
Yeah. There was a big sit down because I had, being a jewel thief, you have to know how to get in places, and I had told them, they had several scores lined up, and I told them that, you'll never get it, you never crack that safe, or that the alarm system is too complicated, and they weren't really too pleased with me because Jilly told them what a great jewel thief I was, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So they were a little bit.
They called. Yeah, they called for a sit down, and it was like 4.5, 5 hours sit down, and finally, Jilly said, "Hey, this is over. Donnie's been around, no problems, blah blah blah." And now I'm in a bad spot because they called me out. So, and you got to maintain your credibility and respect. So I couldn't shake their hand,
so
because then it's well, how come Donnie's not kicked off? And the only thing they would understand now is a physical confrontation. So one of the guys was a made guy, and the other guy was just an associate like me. So I clocked the guy that was an associate like me, and then we got into a big time scuffle, and then finally they broke it up. But I knew that I couldn't hang around there anymore because these two guys were in his crew, and the one guy was a made guy. So I just told Jilly, I said, Jilly, no disrespect for you, but I can't come around here anymore because it's never going to work between me and these guys. And he understood it, and that's when I started hanging out with Tony Mira, who was a banana, and who I had met. That's it just went on from there.
Sure. So the Mira was one of these guys that I guess the bartender introduced you to, or how did that happen? You guys went out. You mentioned that the bartender took you out to gamble. Did you meet Mira gambling, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I met Mira at the games, and when I went back to the games, and I started to saddle up to him and just started hanging out with him. And they went and checked me out with.
Big difference.
They went and checked me. They went and checked me out with Jilly, and Jilly said, "Yeah, Donnie's a good guy. Never had any problem. And he told him about the beef and everything, and so that's how I got a good vouch from Jilly."
Sure. So which all begs the question, which is really key for the Mafia. They're really concerned about guys who bring them money, bring them income on a steady basis.
Right.
They want that steady cash.
Exactly. It's all about earning.
So the thing is that I know you had the access to the FBI would give you, I guess seized diamonds and watches and things like that.
Right.
And later on, when you opened up the club in Holiday, Florida, it seemed like it was a legitimate money making, legitimate and illegitimate I mean, a real bona fide money-making operation that didn't require the FBI to bankroll it. Is that pretty much accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that was an undercover operation started with, before I got there. But yeah, I mean, it was a legitimate club. Everything's done, when you do these operations, everything's done legitimately, because you can't get in sideways. You can't get sideways with other government agencies like the IRS and the tax people and everything. So everything is done legit. But yeah, it was a regular operating club, and the employees were just bartenders and waitresses that just were hired, just citizens. They thought they were just working in a regular nightclub.
Right. So you look at these crew heads, these captains. I don't know if they qualify as captains or capos or what, but Jilly Greco, Tony Mira, Lefty Ruggiero, and Sonny Black Napolitano. These were all. Some of these guys were what? Were they actual captains of the Mafia? Capo Regimes. What were the titles?
Yeah, well, Lefty was a soldier. Everybody starts as a soldier. Once you get inducted into a family, officially inducted, you're a soldier. Everybody's a soldier. Lefty was a soldier. Tony Mira was a soldier. Jilly Greco was a soldier, but he had it, and each guy can have his own crew, and Sonny Black was a capo. Sonny Black was a captain.
Looking at these four figures, these four characters, how do you compare them? The people like Mira and Lefty Ruggiero and Sonny Black. Give me an idea. What like a profile on those people? Very different people, huh?
Yeah, very. Mira was a big drug guy. I mean, he brought a lot of money into the Bonanos through drugs. He was he was a big drug guy. Ruggiero, he ran a bookmaking operation for Nicky Marangella, who was the underboss at one time. When I first got in with the Bonanos and Ruggiero. So that's what Ruggiero did. And when I became his partner, I was, involved in the bookmaking operation with him. Sonny Black was, before he became a captain, he was a hijacker. I mean, he was he had one of the better hijacking crews in the city.
Wow.
And then after they killed Carmine Galenti was the boss of the family when I became involved with the Bonanos. And then after they killed him, Sonny Black became a captain. And he was out in Brooklyn. So now Lefty and I actually were under a captain in Little Italy by the name of Mike Cimbella.
Right.
But once they killed Galenti, they knocked Mike down back to being a soldier, and Sonny Black became a captain, and they moved me and Lefty out to Brooklyn to be under Sonny Black.
Right. Okay.
Because the Mafia, it has a structure. You have the boss, and then you have the underboss, and then you have the capo regimes who are captains, and then under every captain there's so many soldiers and associates, and the captains, the people under him is called a crew. That's his crew.
Sure. Right. And so when you're in your case, you were what they call an associate, I guess, right? Do they actually have? I know obviously they have an initiation for made guys, for guys who earn their button, as they say. Is there any type of a ceremony or graduation where they say, okay, you're now an associate, or is that just something that happens seamlessly?
Well, what happens is that you get hooked up with a soldier. In other words, an associate gets hooked up with a soldier, right? And how do you do that? Because you're a good earner. They see you're a good thief. you're a good earner. You have the ability to make money. So a soldier will, what they say is claim you.
Right.
And he'll go to his captain and say that, I claim Donnie Brasco. That means I'm with him. And what that means is that nobody else can do anything with me, and I can't do anything with anybody else unless I get his permission. So
Right.
once you're claimed, you're with that soldier all the time. That's your guy.
Right.
And then if you're white, male, and Italian, your next step is to become a made guy. So they're following you and watching you and see how good you are, see how much you a burner you are. You could even be a guy that has the ability to cultivate, politicians, judges, law enforcement.
Right.
And
Recruit them.
once they decide that they're going to induct people into the family, your captain, he's the one that proposes you for membership into the family. And what he does is he puts your name up, and then everybody gets a vote on it. We agree that Donnie Brasco can become a made guy.
Right.
And if one guy says no, then
what happens?
then you're shot down. You're shot down. You can't make it.
Yeah. So does that mean you're kicked out, or just?
No, you're just not going to get made that time. But you can get, next time what they say is open the books, and open the books means they're going to, they're allowed to make members. Then, the next time they do that, he can put you up again.